I have a serious problem, and that problem is that I cannot regulate my focus. And since I cannot regulate my focus, I have been building a campaign and turning my notes and character designs into a campaign book for fun, but for the last, 2 years, and it's not been as consistent of work as I wish it was. But for some reason, in the last few days, all my brain cells decided to go on strike, and they demanded that I work on my campaign book or else I should lie in bed and rot, which is not convenient because I have quite a few more other very pressing things that I need to get done. But as the song goes, the heart wants what it wants, so today we're getting lore whether we like it or not. In January of last year, I put out a video talking about a city called Agnatha. It's a city, but it's also kind of a military fortress, and it was built on top of the ruins of an older military fortress. It is one of the front lines belonging to the Old Empire in the conflict between the Old Empire, or Exenir, which is under Empress Madrive Teterbe, and the new actively forming empire called Entekara that is under Moros Salrog. I know, we're dumping a lot of lore here. There are like 15 videos that I've made about this campaign book already, and there's even more lore that I just have written in my notes. I'm just trying to lay a foundation down as simply and as quickly as I can for anyone who's new to the channel or anyone who hasn't watched those videos, so just bear with me for the moment. The whole campaign is sort of set up on the verge of a falling out between the two halves of the continent, and I mean, the party might determine what is the result of that, or not, because there are quite a few other major overarching themes and plot lines to follow, and your party might not care at all about what happens to the Empire and who wins as a whole, which is totally fair. I'm doing my best to try and create interesting characters and cities and quests on both halves of the Empire and in the neutral territories as well. I am partial to some of the characters, especially since I'm doing a lot of character design and planning work for the Old Empire at the moment, so there's a lot of love for that side of things, but I am trying to be as impartial as I can. But anyways, back to Agnatha. Agnatha being a military base, it has a lot of people from all over the continent who are stationed here either temporarily to train or to actually fortify the front line in anticipation of a war. It's a constantly shifting atmosphere with a population that is fluctuating, but in the interest of having a couple of interesting and potentially instigating characters available in the general area to interact with, I have made Eleghar Galanarel and Qiran Peladreza. I never decided whether they were born and raised Agnathians or if they arrived there from other places. However, Eleghar and Qiran have become staples of the military base. They headline a group called Drakescourge, which has been slowly gathering supporters with each passing day. The foundational belief of Drakescourge is that the inaction of the Old Empire will eventually lead to its downfall. They believe that the Empress insists on just leaving people in Agnatha waiting for war to happen, whereas Eleghar, Qiran, and the rest of Drakescourge believe that they need to move into the offensive as soon as possible to make sure they nip Moros Salrog's uprising in the bud. I've created these two characters as options, I guess, kind of, for the party should they happen to come to Agnatha and should they be interested in siding with the Old Empire. Eleghar is the masculine elven character on the left of the drawing, and Qiran is the Githyanki on the right. I know I rendered Qiran first and Eleghar second, so I apologize for the visual discrepancy, but it does make more sense for me to talk about Eleghar first and Qiran second. So, Eleghar is the poster boy of Drakescourge. He is one of the most formidable recruits at Agnatha. He can be found in any number of sparring events around the fortress, and many of the younger recruits regard him very, very highly. He is also incredibly passionate about leading the charge directly into St. Valduressa, which is the city that has become the central headquarters of Salrog's rebellion. Eleghar himself is not only a firm supporter of the Old Empire, he is also a very devout worshipper of the goddess that the city St. Valduressa was named after, and the thought of the city becoming home to those who defy the Empress is to him dirt on the name of the goddess Valduressa herself. Because of his reputation of being as martially adept as he is, many are confident that if they fight alongside him, they will easily overtake Salrog and quell the uprising in the west. However, the catch is that Eleghar is incredibly brash, stubborn, and unwavering, which to some is inspiring, but to a lot of others, it paints him more as a fanatic. Enter Qiran, a Githyanki and also an incredibly skilled fighter within Ignatha's walls. Qiran is able to fill in all the gaps that Eleghar leaves to be desired. It was because of her charisma and expertise that the mission of Drakescourge is not just chalked up to Eleghar's fanaticism. Qiran is a good portion of the voice of Drakescourge, but she also arranges meetings, takes care of inventory, does the accounting. She's a major part of why Drakescourge is an assembly of people, an organization, and not just an idea floating around. Qiran is not religious like Eleghar is, however, she does fear that the Empress is waiting too long to take action. Being the first line of defense and just sitting and waiting for something to happen does take a toll on a person. I love world building. It's kind of obvious with how overboard I go with it, but in my defense, I have anxiety. And if I overplan, the worst that can happen is that I have NPCs that don't get used here, that I can always retcon into a different universe or recreate as a playable character whenever I decide to join a one-shot or a different campaign. That being said, I'd like to think that they're a pretty good example of what a well-placed NPC can do for you in a campaign. Eleghar and Qiran I've placed in Ignatha as catalysts, really. As interactable characters, they're an open invitation to literally just gather a group of strong people and start a fight. They are insights into different kinds of belief systems across the continent. They're sparring opportunities. Or on the other side of things, with time and some really good charisma rolls, you might be able to convince Qiran that Eleghar is crazy for wanting to face Solrog's forces with just a ragtag volunteer army in need of a shower. Or consider this, your party never actually has a chance to go to Ignatha, either because they're coming from Solrog's side or they just got caught up in quests in the north of the continent. But suddenly, there's fighting in St. Valduressa, and that just opens up hundreds of more opportunities depending on who wins, what cities are affected along the way. Moving the rest of the world on regardless of what the party is doing is a really great way to cause problems and also develop the story, creating a sense of a timeline. And all I had to do was draw 2 cool people and write a lot, but I do enjoy writing quite a bit. My whole roots and love of world building actually started in the big map and over 100 characters that I have going and that I talk about in my Redrawing Childhood Characters series. And that series has really been the cornerstone of this channel. But somewhere in the middle of middle school, my sister and cousin and I switched from this paper drawing map situation and decided to write all of our stories over text. And y'all, there was a real struggle because first of all, I didn't have my own phone until high school. So whenever it was my turn to contribute to the story, I would have to catch up to my cousin and sister's text through my sister's phone. And it was like this little dinky burner phone looking track phone, flip phone situation. And this is baby's first phone. So she didn't have a phone with a full keyboard. You had to press the number 3 key 3 times fast just to get the letter F to show up. And I can't believe that we had entire adventures written out this way. What I would give to see what any of those messages look like. Actually, no, you know what? It's probably better that we don't still have access to that. But anyways, thank goodness for Google Docs, which has been my bread and butter for story writing and world building since high school. Although ironically, I guess I've come full circle and now I've gone back to like drawing maps and designing characters all over again. I'm leaning towards making this massive collection of world building and NPCs a freely available PDF or maybe a whole folder of materials whenever I finish it, however long down the line that takes. Fingers crossed that I do actually have time to finish it and stay focused long enough. While it really is a combination of hundreds of thousands of ideas from stories I've written bits and pieces of over years and years of personal creative writing projects, I always feel like I can't help but notice the parallels between it and Critical Role content, and that does make me feel a little insecure about how original my work might actually be, and that raises additional concerns when it comes to thinking about, oh, if I'm going to make money off of this. But on the other hand, if I'm just making stuff up for fun and not profiting off of it in any way, then hopefully that keeps me out of legal problems and otherwise. Plus, upward of 80% of what's going into the books is also going into this video series on my channel anyways, so it's not like you can't access most of the information that will be in the book for free via my videos. Also, speaking of which, I hope none of my near future players are going to see these videos and use them to metagame, because I will do my utmost to counter you, and that is a threat. And in the last 3 or so speed draw minutes, I render Eleghar. I do always feel kind of bad whenever I spend a disproportionately long amount of time on one character and then the other character only gets a few minutes on screen. But in my defense, even before I thought I was going to ever draw these two, I described Eleghar in my notes as a not necessarily striking, but very conventionally attractive man. And I mean, Githyanki are just so much more unique to draw. Although Githyanki have this obligatory high nose placement with sharp cheekbones, it just seems to be a constant between all the images I've seen, and it made me realize just how much I depend on nose size, shape, and placement to add uniqueness to my characters' faces. And yes, eyebrows, lips, and eyes also are a big thing. They play a huge role, but even with all those changes I made, I was still a little bummed that Qiran looked like a dollar store Lae'Zel from Baldur's Gate, so I gave her a little tooth gap, so haha, take that. In terms of physical design choices I made for both of these characters, I wanted both characters to be tall with athletic builds. I wanted wide shoulders, good posture. Even while looking casual, I wanted there to be a sense of that formal training. For clothing, there's a lot more natural earthy colors, layered fabrics, and small bits of armor. There is a little stitching detail in Qiran's collar that is probably not even on screen while I'm talking about it, but it's a nod to something that I've done to my own clothing in real life. So I had a hoodie pocket that caught on something and the corner of it came loose, so I ended up stitching a bunch of little X's in a line across the top of the pocket to repair it and make it look cute. And I think Qiran is probably someone who has a tendency to continually repair an old piece of clothing instead of replacing it. Eleghar's clothing is a little ill-fitting, kind of loose on him. It's also wearing very thin on the hems as a result of continual use. Even though Agnatha is technically a city that has a population separate from the soldiers and recruits that are there, its primary function is to be that military base on the front lines, so the latest and greatest in fashion is not really its primary import. Partway through working on Qiran's outfit, I did realize that she has high-waisted pants, thigh-high boots, big sleeves, and a hip bag, which, oh, that looks familiar because it's pretty darn close to the outfit that I put on IO, which is fine. I just clearly have a type when it comes to drawing fashionable but casual outfits on tall, thin, androgynous-leaning characters, which, like I said, is fine. It's a good outfit because, you know what, how can you not love a big sleeve and a long boot? But both Eleghar and Qiran's outfit I really enjoyed drawing a lot. If you've been on this channel for a while, I feel like I've talked about it several times that I just straight up enjoy drawing draped fabric. I truly get so much joy from drawing a wrinkled seam line or the little gold detail in the front of her pants and how it gets distorted from the way that the pants fold. It is such a small detail, but I get so much satisfaction from drawing it, and it adds a lot of dimension to the pants as well. I just think it's neat. But here we are, Eleghar Glanarel and Qiran Peladreza, ready and willing at your service. I really love how their designs came out. I like the color balance in the piece, and they make such a beautiful addition to the book. I know formatting a book when you're not done writing and editing it is a silly thing to do, but the amount of serotonin that I get from seeing my art next to this double column page of writing is unmatched. It just makes the book and the campaign planning feel a little bit more more real, if that makes sense. And this year I've really wanted to make an effort to stay focused on this campaign building so it doesn't just sit in my drafts like so much of my creative effort does over my life. I'm actually getting to a point in my life where I feel like I could DM a campaign again, and I'm really hoping that DMing will help me figure out and learn more about this world and also give me outside motivation, because unfortunately I'm still not at a point in my focus regulation and self-motivation where I can get work done reliably without the doom of an impending deadline looming over me, because relearning basic task functions is hard, but I'm working on it and I'm getting better at it, I think, but who knows? Not me.